The sound of shattering glass was the last thing he expected to hear on a summer morning painted with sunshine and soft wind. It crashed behind Arlen like a warning from the universe, fragments of a lemonade jar scattering across the grass as he froze in place.
I just can't believe this is
The backyard
happening.
fair, with its picnic tables, pastel bunting, and families laughing under white tents, blurred into a distant hum. All he could see was Mara a few feet away, her expression dimming, her breath catching in her chest as if she had just remembered something she had spent years trying to forget. And in that moment, before either of them spoke, Arlen felt the familiar sting of panic tightening behind his ribs, the same panic he'd lived with since the accident 3 years earlier, the same fear that life had a habit of breaking whatever he dared to care about. If you're watching this ripple of love unfold and believe in hope, compassion, and second chances, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Arlen bent down to gather the broken pieces, but his hands trembled the way they always did when the past reached out and grazed him with cold fingers. He remembered the nights in the hospital, the icy white hallways, the ringing silence after his younger brother's heart gave out before dawn. Every shattered thing reminded him of that night, of how fragile people really were, and how quickly the world stole them when you weren't ready. He tried to hide the tremor, brushing at the grass, but Mara knelt beside him, steadying his wrist with her warm touch. Her eyes, soft brown and shining in the afternoon light, held a quiet worry he didn't deserve. She had a way of seeing the cracks he tried so hard to plaster over, but she never pressured him to heal faster than he could. She only stayed close, like drifting sunlight, like a promise he wasn't sure he'd earned. They had met a year ago at the summer fair, the same one unfolding around them now. He had been repairing the broken wheel of a charity booth, cursing under his breath, when she walked over and offered help with a smile that felt like a balm. Mara, with her past she rarely spoke about, her divorce finalized only weeks before she moved to this small town, her dreams of opening a bakery tucked in the back of her mind like a tender secret. People saw her confidence, her laughter, the way she filled empty spaces with warmth, but Arlen saw something more, tiny fractures behind the glow, an ache she hid beneath her bright ponytail and effortless charm. They were two people stitched together by losses they carried quietly, learning that healing sometimes meant sitting beside someone else in their silence. Now, as the fair carried on with soft music drifting through the trees, Arlen felt the old fear rising again, whispering that he could ruin this too, that everything he touched splintered eventually. Mara reached over and lifted a sharp piece of glass from his palm, her fingertips grazing his skin. The tiny gesture soothed him more than she realized, reminding him that life wasn't always as fragile as he feared. She smiled, brushing off her knees, and joked about how she was clumsy even on steady ground. It was the kind of gentleness that made the world hurt a little less. They walked toward one of the wooden tables where Mara had set up a small display of cupcakes she had baked for the fundraiser. The air smelled of sugar, warm bread, and cut grass. Children ran past them with painted faces and sticky fingers. Arlen watched her straighten the pastel boxes, adjusting ribbons she had tied with meticulous care. Baking was her sanctuary, she once admitted, a place where mistakes could be fixed by trying again, where nothing was truly ruined as long as you kept your hands moving. He envied her optimism, her ability to see beginnings instead of endings. Arlen picked up one of the cupcakes, vanilla with soft blue frosting, and teased her about how she could probably win people's hearts just by feeding them enough sugar. Mara laughed, a sound so bright it felt like someone lifting a curtain inside his chest. He joked then, out of habit, out of that nervous energy that always fluttered in his stomach when he didn't know how to express something real. He said something ridiculous, something halfway playful and halfway terrified of being sincere. He held the cupcake like it was a ring box and muttered that he'd marry her on the spot if she promised he could eat every cake she ever baked. He didn't expect her to pause. He didn't expect her smile to soften into something trembling and tender. He didn't expect her eyes to glisten in a way that made his heart lurch. And he definitely didn't expect her to breathe out that she thought he'd never ask, like she had been waiting for this joke of his, waiting for him to choose hope instead of fear. The world fell silent around them, the laughter, the music, the summer wind, everything stilled as if the universe leaned in closer, holding its breath. Arlen felt the air thicken, the weight of a moment he hadn't prepared for pressing against his ribs. For a second, he panicked. He thought of all the reasons he wasn't enough. He thought of the nights he still jolted awake from dreams he couldn't outrun. He thought of Mara's past, the heartbreak she had survived, the trust she was slowly rebuilding piece by piece. But then she reached for him, gently, carefully, as if she knew every storm inside him and wasn't afraid. Her hand fit into his like it had been waiting there all along. The noise of the fair slowly returned, washing over them, sunlight flickering through tree leaves, distant chatter, the soft clink of glasses. Arlen felt something shift inside him, something long dormant and aching for warmth. It wasn't a dramatic explosion of courage or a sudden disappearance of fear. It was quieter, steadier, like a candle finally being lit after years of darkness. He realized then that Mara hadn't misheard his joke. She understood him better than he understood himself. She heard the tremble beneath the humor, the longing he never voiced, the hope he buried under layers of doubt. She wasn't asking for a promise he couldn't keep. She was offering him a future where both of them could take small steps forward together, not perfectly, but honestly. They stood under the bunting shadows, the colors swaying above them like confetti caught in slow motion. Arlen felt tears prick his eyes, not because he was overwhelmed, but because he suddenly understood how healing worked. It wasn't about forgetting the pain. It was about finding someone who didn't run from it. As the day warmed and the fair buzzed around them, Arlen lifted Mara's hand to his chest, letting her feel the tremor that had shaped his life. She didn't flinch. She didn't pull away. She simply leaned close enough for him to hear her heartbeat too. Two damaged rhythms learning how to sync. If this story has touched your heart so far, don't forget to support it. Your love helps these moments reach more people who need them. Before the final moment, I'd love for viewers to comment and share their thoughts. Arlen knew then what he needed to say, not in a joke, not in a half-hearted tease, but with the weight and warmth she deserved. He promised, quietly, that he didn't know where life would take them, and he couldn't promise he'd never crack or falter, but he could promise that he wanted to walk forward with her, even if his steps trembled. Mara smiled, brushing her thumb along his hand, and whispered that she wasn't afraid of the cracks, she was afraid of a life without someone who understood her own. The sun dipped slightly, casting golden light across her face. The fair sounded distant again, but this time not because of fear, because this moment was louder, fuller, more real than anything around them. Arlen breathed deeply, feeling the calm settle into his bones. And as he leaned his forehead against hers, he realized that the scariest things in life often became the most beautiful once you stopped running. He didn't kneel. He didn't pull out a ring. He didn't need to. Their promise was already beginning, soft and fragile like a new dawn. A whispered truth wrapped in sunlight and laughter, carried forward by two souls learning to heal, together. And in that quiet, heartwarming moment, something inside both of them finally clicked into place. Love doesn't ask you to be unbroken, just willing.